Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This chapter 7, dealing with marriage and kinship, is again a very important aspect of studying cultural anthropology. It's important for many reasons. One is it's human beings in terms of our growth and maturation. In terms of other species, we tend to stay the longest within the families, and that it takes a longer time, a maturation period for human infants to be able to independently take care of themselves. So there's such a long maturation period involved in learning culture and to be able to operate successfully in society without basically on your own. And human beings take the longest time to maturate. But this chapter is going to be very important for the next exam. If any chapter is really related so much to the study of you being able to look at the concepts, know their definitions, it would be this chapter. There's just a lot of different terms here that you need to familiarize yourself. So I can't really just say any particular part of this chapter it dominates on the exam. It actually covers this whole chapter. But it covers the main concepts. So again, as I've said earlier, just read the chapter through. Familiarize yourself with the concepts. Go back, study the materials. You have your PowerPoints and you got your my online lecture notes. Take those and go back and get a feel for the concepts themselves and how they're related. Remember, they come in pairs, and so you need like matrilineal societies, patrilineal societies. You need to be able to distinguish these and what are the main characteristics of each. And if you do so, you'll be successful. I just wanted to take the short time we have to give you an interesting take in terms of marriage and kinship. And I'm going to make a linkage back to the chapter on culture. In the chapter on culture, they distinguish between cultural universals, cultural generalities, and cultural particulars. A cultural universal is something that all human groups share. For example, one cultural universal in terms of the family is that all human groups have some form of family structure. Basically the nuclear family, but other, as the chapter shows, other family types as well. And also there's generalities. There's some practices in some societies in terms of marriage and kinship that is not practiced in others. Maybe shared widely within, say for example, a certain region, but not worldwide, not in every culture. And then there are cultural particulars that are just particular to that one culture. We find it nowhere else. And so I kind of want to play with this a little and give you an example in terms of marriage and kinship. Now we know that some family form is universal among human beings. This is a cultural universal. But is marriage, the practice of marriage ceremony, marriage itself, is it a cultural universal, a cultural generality, or a cultural particular? Because of one existence of a subculture, there's a subculture called the Nari in southwestern China. A subculture there, ethnic subculture, that does not practice any form of marriage ceremony or marriage arrangements. Yes, they do have a family pattern. The family pattern of the Nari is matrilineal. So the descent line is through the mother's line. And the mothers among the Nari are the leaders of the community. And, they're the ones that take care of property and property rights and political matters. But they don't practice marriage. So I'm going to give you some of the lowdown on how they do this. So what we would say about the Nari of China is that they're, because of this one subculture, does not practice marriage. This makes marriage among human beings a cultural generality because it's not shared by, even though it's shared by 99.9% of all the other cultures in the world, because of this one subculture in China, marriage is not seen as, can't be claimed to be a cultural universal. It's a cultural generality. However, on the other end, looking at their style of family life, we would say for them this is a cultural particular. It's not shared with anyone else in the world. So it's just particular to the Nari. And how this works out is basically women do not take a husband. They basically have lovers, and at night, they invite their lovers to come. It's kind of like for us, sneaking into the window kind of thing. There's not a lot of talk about who one is with. In the culture, one comes, there's love making, and then they leave, and then that's they have children by these males, but they're not considered the fathers. Actually, the children, in terms of a male person in their lives, is the mother's brother. So the mother's brother kind of plays the pseudo role of the father in the family. So it's kind of in our culture, the way we would kind of sum this up is it's a kind of running around loose. We would think of it as sort of loose people just having a good time with each other, without any kinds of emotional ties. And this culture has been under attack even by the Chinese government during the during the Cultural Revolution between 1966 and 1976. The government attempted to force the Nari to marry in the traditional Chinese fashion, in a patriarchal fashion. And however, after 1976, they went right back to their old cultural pattern and stopped practicing marriage. This is called among the Nari. This kind of practice is called the walking marriage, for whatever reason. But can you imagine in our culture? Could you imagine that people just hung out together, and at night men would come to your home, or females, or either way, and you just had various multiple partners and had children, and then your brother would play the part of the father, and there's no husband involved whatsoever. Very interesting case. I'm wondering how you being in our American culture, in our family style of social organization of our families, how you would perceive this. We keep talking in our discussions about. Sometimes I notice some of your remarks are ethnocentric. It's nothing to be so negative about, but I just sort of bring it to attention when I can, so to make you aware that many times when we turn our nose up or about a certain practice, we're being ethnocentric because we're judging that cultural way of life in terms of our own background. So we make moral judgments of that's superior or inferior or right or wrong. And so I try to keep bringing you back to a cultural relative standpoint. Same thing with this question. Would this kind of family arrangement work in a country like the United States? And also, how do you personally feel about that? Excuse me. So I'm going to put this discussion on the board for us to have a little discussion about this question. Okay, well, I'll see you soon, and next week we start our next two chapters, and we'll begin also heading into the second exam, and I'll give you some review about that exam before we take it next weekend. Okay, hey, have a great rest of the weekend. All right.